Vincent van Gogh, Turning Pain into Timeless Art. Made by EngliTell.
Part 1. The Strange Boy. Vincent van Gogh was born in the Netherlands in 1853. From the beginning, he was different from other children. While other kids played together, Vincent preferred to walk alone in fields and forests. He would stare at flowers and trees for hours, seeing things that others missed. His father, Theodorus, was a church minister who expected well-behaved children. Vincent was emotional, loud, and often angry. He asked too many questions and said things that made adults uncomfortable. "That boy is strange," neighbors would whisper. "He doesn't act like normal children." Vincent heard these words often, and they hurt him deeply. He began to feel like something was wrong with him. At school, Vincent struggled. He was smart, but couldn't focus on boring lessons. Instead, he would draw pictures in his notebooks or stare out the window. His teachers complained that he was difficult and would not listen. His family tried to understand him, but Vincent felt like an outsider even at home. He had a younger brother named Theo who was calm, social, and easy to love. People always compared the two brothers, and Vincent never looked good in comparison. The only place Vincent felt peace was in nature. He would walk for miles through the Dutch countryside, watching how light fell on water or how wind moved through wheat fields. These moments were magical to him. Vincent's behavior worried his parents. They sent him to different schools, hoping someone could fix him, but nothing worked. At each school, Vincent remained the odd boy who didn't fit in anywhere. By his teenage years, Vincent had a reputation as the strange Van Gogh boy who talked to himself and spent too much time alone. Most people avoided him. Vincent felt this rejection deeply. He began to believe he was meant to be alone, that something inside him was broken. He didn't know that his intense way of seeing the world would one day create beautiful art. The lonely boy walking through Dutch fields was already an artist. He just didn't know it yet. Part 2. Failing at Everything. As Vincent grew older, his family worried about his future. At 16, they decided he needed a job. His uncle owned an art gallery, so they sent Vincent to work there. Maybe selling paintings would be good for the boy who loved to look at things. At first, Vincent enjoyed being around beautiful artwork. He studied every painting carefully, learning about different artists. But he was terrible at selling. When customers wanted popular paintings, Vincent would try to convince them to choose better art instead. "This painting has no soul," he would tell confused customers. "You should buy this one instead." Most customers left without buying anything. Vincent's bosses were not happy. After a few years, Vincent was transferred to London, then Paris. In both cities, the same thing happened. He was too honest, too intense for business. Finally, the art gallery fired him. Vincent tried teaching next. He got a job at a small school in England, but this also ended badly. He cared too much about his students and shared his food with hungry children. The school said he was too emotional to be a teacher. Desperate to find his purpose, Vincent decided to become a minister like his father. He went to Amsterdam to study religious studies, but university was a disaster. Vincent couldn't learn Latin and Greek by heart, and he argued with professors. After failing his exams, he left in shame. Vincent tried to become a preacher without formal training. He went to a poor mining region in Belgium and gave away his clothes, food, and money to help families. He slept on the floor and ate almost nothing. The church officials were shocked. "A preacher should be respectable," they told him. "You look like a beggar." They fired him from this job too. By age 27, Vincent had failed at everything he tried. He had no money, no job, and no future. His family was embarrassed. His father even considered sending him to a hospital for his mind. Vincent felt completely lost. He wrote desperate letters to his brother Theo, trying to explain why nothing worked. "I feel like a caged bird," he wrote. "I know I should be doing something important, but I don't know what." Part 3. Finding Art Too Late. In 1880, when Vincent was 27 years old, something changed. After years of failure, he made a decision that surprised everyone. He decided to become an artist. This seemed like another bad idea to his family. Vincent had no art training, no money for supplies, and no connections. Most artists start learning as children. Vincent was starting almost 3 decades too late, but something felt right about this choice for the first time in his life. All those hours staring at nature as a child suddenly made sense. His intense way of seeing the world wasn't a problem. It was a gift. Vincent's brother Theo was the only person who believed in him. Theo worked at an art gallery in Paris and understood how difficult it was to succeed as an artist. But he saw something special in Vincent's strong will. "I will support you," Theo promised. "But you must work hard and never give up." With Theo sending him money each month, Vincent could focus on learning to draw and paint. Vincent threw himself into art with the same intensity that had made him fail at other jobs. He drew constantly: peasants working in fields, old shoes, simple objects. His early drawings were rough, but they had something that impressed teachers. He studied great artists like Millet, who painted ordinary people with respect. Vincent felt connected to their vision. He wanted to show beauty in simple, poor people who were usually ignored by the art world. Vincent's first paintings were dark and heavy. He painted potato eaters sitting around a table, their faces rough from hard work. He painted weavers and farmers in muddy fields. These weren't pretty pictures, but they were honest and powerful. Other artists didn't understand Vincent's work. "Why do you paint such ugly subjects?" they asked. But Vincent believed truth was more important than beauty. "I want to paint people who have soul," Vincent wrote to Theo. "I want to show that poor people are just as important as rich people." Vincent was finally doing what he was meant to do. The years of failure had taught him to understand suffering and find beauty in ordinary things. Part 4. Painting Through Hunger. Life as an artist was even harder than Vincent had imagined. The small amount of money Theo sent each month was barely enough to survive. Vincent had to choose between buying food and buying paint. Most of the time, he chose paint. Vincent lived in tiny, cold rooms that he could barely afford. In winter, he had no money for heating, so he painted wearing multiple coats. His hands were often too cold to hold the brush properly, but he kept working anyway. Some days, Vincent ate nothing but bread and coffee. Other days, he ate nothing at all. His clothes were old and full of holes. He looked like a homeless person, which embarrassed his family even more. But hunger and cold couldn't stop Vincent from painting. The suffering made him work harder. "When I have no food, I paint," he wrote to Theo. "Painting is the only thing that makes me feel alive." Vincent's neighbors thought he was crazy. They would see him standing in fields at strange hours, painting the same haystack over and over. Sometimes he painted in the rain because the light was interesting. He painted so intensely that he would forget to eat even when he had food. Fellow artists who visited were shocked by his living conditions. "How can you create anything beautiful in such misery?" they asked. "The misery is part of the beauty," Vincent would answer. "I paint what I feel, not what I see." Vincent's paintings from this period were still dark and heavy, but they showed incredible skill and emotion. He was learning to use color and light in powerful ways. Each painting was trying something new. The loneliness was very hard to bear. Vincent had no friends and no romantic relationships. Other artists avoided him because he was too intense. He would talk for hours about art, making people uncomfortable. His only companion was his work. Every morning, no matter how hungry or sick he felt, Vincent would pick up his brushes and continue painting. He created hundreds of works, filling his small rooms with art that no one wanted to buy. Vincent began to realize he might never be successful in his lifetime. But this didn't stop him. "I don't paint to become famous," he wrote. "I paint because I must. It's like breathing." Part 5. The Brothers' Faith. Throughout all of Vincent's struggles, one person never gave up on him, his younger brother Theo. While the rest of the family saw Vincent as a failure, Theo saw his brother's genius. Every month, without fail, Theo sent Vincent money for food and art supplies. It wasn't much, sometimes only enough for a few meals and some paint, but it kept Vincent alive and working. Theo made this sacrifice even though he wasn't wealthy himself. The two brothers wrote letters to each other constantly. Vincent would describe his paintings, his ideas about art, and his struggles with loneliness. Theo would respond with encouragement and advice. "Your paintings have something special," Theo wrote. "I can see the emotion in every brushstroke. Don't let anyone tell you that your work doesn't matter." Theo worked at an art gallery in Paris, so he understood the art world well. He knew that Vincent's style was too different for current tastes, but he also knew that truly great art was often rejected at first. When Vincent's paintings were rejected by galleries, Theo would comfort him. "The greatest artists in history were misunderstood," he reminded Vincent. "Your time will come." Theo tried to help Vincent sell his work, but it was almost impossible. Vincent's paintings were too intense, too strange for most buyers. People wanted pretty, decorative art. Vincent's emotional brushstrokes scared them. Sometimes Vincent felt guilty about taking Theo's money. "I'm a burden to you," he wrote. "Maybe I should give up painting." But Theo wouldn't hear of it. "You're not a burden," Theo replied. "You're my brother, and you're creating something important. I believe in your work, even if no one else does yet." This belief meant everything to Vincent. On his darkest days, when he felt completely alone, he would read Theo's letters and find strength to continue painting. Theo's faith never changed, even when Vincent's mind began to get worse. When Vincent had bad times with his health, Theo would patiently wait for his brother to recover and start painting again. "As long as you keep creating," Theo wrote, "there is hope. Your paintings show the world things they have never seen before." Without Theo's support, Vincent would never have been able to continue as an artist. Part 6. Colors of Madness. In 1888, Vincent moved to the south of France, hoping the warm weather would help his health. He went to a small town called Arles, where the bright sunlight changed everything about his art. For the first time, Vincent discovered color. The dark, heavy paintings of his early years disappeared. Instead, he began painting with bright yellows, deep blues, and burning oranges. The southern sun seemed to set his brushes on fire. Vincent painted sunflowers that glowed like the sun itself. He painted his bedroom with colors so bright they almost hurt to look at. He painted the night sky filled with swirling stars that moved like living things. But the intense work was destroying his mind. Vincent painted with such passion that he would forget to eat or sleep for days. He drank too much coffee and wine to keep working. His hands shook, and he talked to himself while painting. The people of Arles thought Vincent was crazy. They would watch him paint outside in the burning heat, talking to his canvas like it was a person. Children threw stones at him and called him names. Vincent's behavior became stranger each day. He would paint the same subject over and over, trying to capture something that others couldn't see. He painted so fast that his brushstrokes looked wild and dangerous. "I see things differently," Vincent wrote to Theo. "Colors speak to me. They tell me secrets about life and death and beauty." In December 1888, Vincent had his first major breakdown. After a fight with another artist, he cut off part of his own ear with a razor blade. He wrapped it in paper and gave it to a woman at a local brothel, saying, "Guard this article carefully." The police found Vincent bleeding and confused. They took him to the hospital, where he slowly recovered. But the people of Arles were afraid of him now. They signed a letter asking him to leave their town. Vincent's mind was breaking, but his art was becoming more beautiful than ever. The madness that frightened people was also creating masterpieces that would change art forever. Part 7. Beauty from Pain. After the ear incident, Vincent's life became a pattern of sickness and recovery. He would have periods of terrible mental illness, followed by times when he felt better and painted with incredible energy. The people around him didn't understand that Vincent's sickness and his genius were connected. When his mind was most troubled, his art became most powerful. He painted his emotions directly onto the canvas. Vincent painted the starry night during one of his stays in a mental hospital. Looking out his window, he saw the night sky moving and swirling like a river. Most people would see a calm, dark sky. Vincent saw energy and movement and painted it with thick, curving brush strokes. He painted self-portraits when he couldn't afford models. These paintings showed his pain clearly, his eyes wild, his face thin from not eating, his red hair messy. But they also showed his strength and his refusal to give up. In the mental hospital, Vincent painted the garden, other patients, and the doctors. He found beauty even in this sad place. "I paint to keep myself sane," he told the doctors. "When I paint, the voices in my head become quiet." Vincent created over 150 paintings and 100 drawings during his last 2 years. This was an incredible amount of work for someone so sick. He painted cypress trees that reached toward heaven like flames. He painted wheat fields under stormy skies that showed his inner emotions. The local people still thought Vincent was dangerous, but a few began to see something special in his work. A doctor who treated Vincent started collecting his paintings. "This man is not just crazy," the doctor said. "He sees the world in a way that we cannot." Vincent's letters to Theo during this time were both beautiful and heartbreaking. "I know I am sick," he wrote, "but when I paint, I feel close to God. My illness gives me visions that normal people cannot see." Even in darkness, Vincent continued creating light. Part 8. The Final Masterpieces. By 1890, Vincent had moved to a small village called Auvers near Paris. A doctor there promised to take care of him. Vincent hoped this quiet place would help his mind heal, but he was getting sicker. Despite his illness, Vincent painted some of his greatest works during these final months. He painted the village church, wheat fields, and portraits of local people. Each painting was filled with emotion and energy. Vincent painted faster than ever before, as if he knew his time was running short. In just 70 days, he completed 70 paintings and 30 drawings. This was an impossible speed, but Vincent seemed to be racing against time. His painting, The Church at Auvers, showed a simple building, but Vincent made it look alive and moving. The sky swirled with energy, and the church seemed to breathe. People who saw it felt something they couldn't explain. Vincent painted wheat fields under dramatic skies. These weren't just pictures of nature. They were pictures of his emotions. The wheat bent in the wind like people bowing in prayer. The sky showed his inner storms. His final painting, Wheat Field with Crows, showed blackbirds flying over golden wheat under a dark, stormy sky. The painting felt like a goodbye. The colors were beautiful, but also sad and final. Vincent wrote to Theo about feeling very tired. "I have given everything to my art," he said. "I don't know how much more I can give." On July 27, 1890, Vincent van Gogh shot himself in the chest with a gun. He walked back to his room and died 2 days later, with Theo holding his hand. His last words were, "The sadness will last forever." He was only 37 years old. In his lifetime, he had sold only one painting. Part 9. Death of a Failure. When Vincent van Gogh died, the world barely noticed. The local newspaper wrote just a few lines about the painter who shot himself. Most people in the village were relieved that the strange, crazy artist was gone. Vincent's funeral was small and sad. Only a few people came. His brother Theo, the doctor who had tried to help him, and a couple of local friends. They buried him in a simple grave with no fancy headstone. The art world didn't care about his death. Critics who had ignored his work when he was alive continued to ignore it after he died. It was just a mad painter who couldn't sell anything, they said. Theo was heartbroken by his brother's death. He tried to show people how great Vincent's art was, but nobody wanted to listen. Theo died just 6 months later, probably from sadness and stress. Vincent left behind over 900 paintings and 1,100 drawings. He had worked for only 10 years as an artist, but created more than most artists create in a lifetime. All of this art was stored in boxes and closets, forgotten. His paintings were considered worthless. Some were used to cover holes in chicken coops. Others were given away to people who didn't want them. The sunflowers that would later become world famous were treated like garbage. For years, Vincent van Gogh was remembered only as the crazy artist who cut off his ear and killed himself. People told his story as a warning about what happens when artists go mad. The man who had poured his soul into every brushstroke, who had created beauty while living in poverty and pain, died believing he was a complete failure. But death was not the end of Vincent's story. It was just the beginning. Part 10. Immortal Legacy. 10 years after Vincent's death, something began to change. A few artists and art collectors started to look at his work differently. They saw something that others had missed: pure genius. His sister-in-law, Theo's wife, had kept all of Vincent's paintings. She began showing them to people and telling Vincent's story. Slowly, people started to understand what they were seeing. The wild brushstrokes that had seemed crazy were actually brilliant. The bright colors that had hurt people's eyes were revolutionary. Vincent hadn't painted what things looked like. He had painted what they felt like. By 1910, Vincent van Gogh was becoming famous. Museums began buying his paintings. Art students studied his techniques. The failed artist was being recognized as a master. Today, Vincent van Gogh is one of the most famous artists in history. His painting, The Starry Night, is recognized by people all over the world. His sunflowers sell for millions of dollars, the same paintings that were once considered worthless. Museums dedicated to Vincent's work attract millions of visitors every year. People stand in long lines just to see the paintings that nobody wanted when he was alive. Vincent's story has inspired countless people who feel different or rejected. His life shows that sometimes the things that make you strange are the same things that make you special. The boy who couldn't fit in, who failed at everything he tried, who lived in poverty and died young, became immortal through his art. Vincent van Gogh proved that true success isn't about money or fame during your lifetime. It's about leaving something beautiful behind. Vincent once wrote, "I want to touch people with my art. I want them to say, 'He feels deeply, he feels tenderly.'" The rejected, lonely artist finally found what he was looking for. He touched the hearts of humanity forever.
Thanks for listening. Like and subscribe to EngliTell, and let's learn English through amazing stories together.